Hello and welcome to the Crystal Palace podcast. I'm Alfonso Greenbrook and today in Pod 12 I'll be looking at a result over Everton by bringing you my match review, player rankings and my man of match. As well as this, I'm also going to bring you an exclusive interview with Alan Pardew, Joe Ward and James Tompkins after game. So let's begin. Christian Benteke grabbed the equaliser as Crystal Palace claimed a 1-1 draw against Everton at Goodison Park. In the battle of the two Belgian strikers, Romelu Lukaku had put the hosts ahead on 35 minutes when he bent a fine free kick over the Palace wall and into the net, but just 5 minutes after the restart, Benteke notched his third for the Eagles with a fine header from a Joe Ward cross. Alan Pardew's side thought they had taken the lead soon after when Damien Delaney saw a header disallowed for offside by John Moss, but they were well worth a point that extended the Eagles' unbeaten run to 5 matches. Palace came into the game on Friday night on the back of 3 consecutive wins, with only one change being made to the starting 11 as Wilfried Zaha took his place ahead of Yohan Cabaye. The home side started the game with some good possession and won a number of corners in the opening period, with the best chance falling to Lukaku as he got on the end of a cross from ex-Eagle Yannick Bolasie, but Delaney cleared the danger. Palace had an opportunity of their own on 11 minutes when Joe Ledley worked his way into a good position, but his cross was cut out by Phil Jagielka, and from the counter-attack, Ross Barkley shot over the bar from outside the box. The host had a penalty appeal waved away on 14 minutes when Tom cleverly put the ball through to Brian Oviedo, but as he went down and the appeal started for the spot kick, the offside flag was raised and referee Moss didn't have to make a decision on the spot kick. However, they took the lead on 35 minutes. Delaney and Jagielka went for the ball, but the Palace captain was penalised for a high boot, and the opening goal of the night came courtesy of the left-footed shot from Lukaku's direct free kick that went straight into the roof of the net, leaving Steve Mondonda helpless. Both teams went into half-time with that free kick separating the two sides under lights at Goodison Park, but Palace was soon on level terms just 6 minutes into the start of the second half. A delightful cross from Joe Ward to the back post saw Benteke brilliantly arrive above Coleman to head the ball into the bottom corner of the net and bring the game all square. Ronald Koeman's men nearly regained the lead straight away, but Bolasie got to the byline down the left and crossed for Guy, but the former Aston Villa man was denied by an excellent block from Martin Kelly. The visitors nearly made the most of the good start to the second period, as just before the hour mark they thought they had taken the lead. Ward again crossed the ball and Delaney got on the end of it to put the ball into the net, but as he thought he had scored, Moss liaised with the assistant between them they decided to keep the scores level. On the hour mark, a good piece of acrobatics from Bolasie gave the home side a chance at the other end, but his bicycle kick went well wide. However, it required Jason Puncheon to keep Palace on level terms as he cleared the ball off the line on 66 minutes after Gareth Barry headed Barkley's corner towards the goal. Both sides pushed for the winner, and James Tompkins nearly got the ball past Stecklenburg, and Kelly looped a header back into the box, but it was well held by the keeper before Lukaku found a rushing Coleman inside the box, but under pressure from defenders coming, he scooped the ball well wide and the spoils were shared. So now you've heard the match review, we're now going to move on to some positives and negatives from the game. Everton looked the better side in the first half, but as seems to be typical of Crystal Palace this season, a second half resurgence and an astonishing Christian Benteke goal won Crystal Palace a point in a 1-1 draw against Everton at Goodison Park on Friday night. Now for some positives from the game. Everton had the better of Palace for much of the game, but once again Alan Pardew's side showed great spirit and boldness to equalise and then continue to push for a winner. It didn't come, but a point against this Everton side is a very good one. Now for some negatives from the game. The goal conceded by Palace, which should have perhaps been an indirect free kick rather than the direct one given by referee John Moss, may not have gone in if Palace's wall had jumped. Instead, Romelu Lukaku spun the ball just over the wall and into Palace's goal. The Eagles were also victim to what seemed to be a questionable offside call for Damien Delaney's goal that was ruled out. Now to move on to 5 things you've learned from the game. Yannick Bolasie was a man on a mission. The former Crystal Palace winger was involved in a lot of the action, particularly in the first half. He was a threat for Everton as he looked to supply striker Romelu Lukaku whilst he got into some good positions himself. And the early booing from Palace fans seemed to spur him on even more, with Bolasie attempting an innocuous overhead kick in the second half. He was also booked late on for an over-jealousy tackle and challenge on Joe Ward. Number 2. Scott Dann's return will give Pardew food for thought. The centre-back's presence was missed in the early stages at Goodison Park, with the Eagles looking far from sure at the back in the first half. The Everton goal was a prime example as the wall remained virtually static, but Palace improved in the second half and looked more solid as they took the game to Everton. And although the return of the skipper after international break will be a boost, and it will give boss Alan Pardew options at centre-back again. Number 3. Christian Benteke provides a point on Merseyside. The Belgian striker was returning to Merseyside for the first time since his move from Liverpool this summer, after a disappointing season at Anfield. But he scored with another fine header to make it 1-1, his third goal of the season for Palace. Number 4. Joe Ward's deliveries were superb. The former Portsmouth defender provided an assist for Christian Benteke's goal with a fine ball into the box, and repeated the trick with another superb ball in for Damien Delaney to head home, only for the goal to be ruled out for offside, much to Palace's frustration. He also marshalled former teammate Yannick Bolasie well throughout the game. And number 5. Palace can mix it with the best. It may not have been a great first half from the Eagles, but they were much better in the second half and unlucky not to take all 3 points. On this showing, they are certainly top half material. So now you've heard the match review, we're now going to move on to the player rankings, but before we start that, don't forget to follow us across social media on Twitter and Facebook at eCrystalPalace for all the latest news. And for all you Facebook users out there, don't forget to check out our Facebook group so you can join in with the latest discussions, read the latest news and also post your own opinion. So like I said there, if you do want to get in contact with us, do contact us via the numerous social media accounts we have, obviously both of them being Twitter and Facebook, and you can find the at eCrystalPalace. So if you do want to follow us, do give us a follow because we post all the latest news in there. And obviously if you're on Facebook, do join the Facebook group. I would highly recommend it because on there, loads of fans after the game will post their own opinion on maybe a player's performance or maybe just something they highlighted about the game, and that adds a bit more discussion to our account so we can see what other fans had to say and see whether everyone agrees with each other. And obviously if you are listening to this on YouTube, do comment below on YouTube if you do agree with my player rankings, if you think they're fair, and also the man of match when I go on to talk about it. But another thing I'll set to you, a challenge which I've done for the last few weeks, if any of you do want to comment below the video giving me your player rankings as well. So obviously I'm going to give you mine and give each of the players a rating out of 10, but if you want to do the same, list all of the players from the starting 11 and the bench and do give them ratings out of 10 so we can compare mine and yours. But obviously enough of that, I'm now going to move on to the player rankings, and you know, I'm not going to go into too much detail about the formation this week, but like past weeks we played the sort of 4-3-3 formation, that sort of approach with the sort of midfielders changing positions, with primarily Ledley playing in the defensive role. But obviously starting in goal with Steve Mondonda, and I am going to give him a 7. He would have been frustrated at conceding the free kick and perhaps should have dived, but that was the only contentious point about his performance. So obviously Steve Mandanda there, I've given him the 7 because once again he had a fantastic solid performance, and to be honest he could have been, it was quite a frustrating game for him because we could have kept the clean sheet if he hadn't conceded the free kick, and to be honest he probably could have dived for that free kick, but considering he said to the wall to jump, you can't really blame him for not saving that. But to be honest, other than that sort of goal he conceded where he could have dived with the wall, could have jumped, that was the only contentious point about his performance. And you know, throughout the game, and the reason I've given him the 7 is because his distribution was fantastic as well, you know, helping setting up quick counter-attacks by releasing the ball from set pieces quickly, also just making crucial saves and blocks and punches throughout the game. Obviously there's a few occasions where Lukaku got forward, he'd try and have a shot, Bolasie had a shot as well on occasion, and he was able to position himself well to either catch the ball or deflect it to go out for a corner, and he'd done that with ease as well. And to be honest, his positioning was very good as well. Obviously he made sure that when he made these saves he was in the right positions, but that alone, when Everton had a few corners. He used his leadership skills to make sure all of the defenders knew where they had to be. And obviously, on one occasion, that saved us because he made sure that the puncheon was on his back post. So when they whipped the ball in, Everton defender got his head on it, but luckily puncheon was there thanks to Mandanda telling him to go there, and he was able to clear the ball away. But once again, a very commanding, very good defensive performance from Steve Mandanda. Could have been, blamed for the goal, but I personally think it's because the ball could have jumped. But to be honest, he can't be overly disappointed with his performance, and that's why I've given him a 7. Now to move on to the back four, starting with the right back, Joe Ward, and I am going to give him a 9. Having worked with Yannick Bolasie for 4 years, he probably knows his opponent's qualities in intricate detail, but to keep the winger at bay, as he did on Friday evening, was a fantastic effort. His assist for Benteke's goal was also perfectly timed and weighted. So obviously, we all know that Joe Ward's been at the club for a similar time as Yannick Bolasie, so they've been together for quite a long time. And obviously, I think that helped us throughout the game because Joe Ward knew how to defend against Bolasie and keep him at bay. Like a sort of a saying they use in football, putting a player in his pocket. I think we can safely say that Joe Ward had Yannick Bolasie in his pocket because Yannick Bolasie, yes, he was a threat throughout the game, but Joe Ward kept that to a minimum because of his fantastic class and professional defending that he did to cope with Yannick Bolasie. And I would like to highlight it that I think it's because he worked with Bolasie for 4 years, he knew exactly what he would do, his skills, so he was able to sort of level up to Bolasie and keep it at bay. And to be honest, it's a fantastic effort. Last season, quite a lot of defenders weren't able to contain Bolasie, but Joe Ward, yes, he had the advantage of working with him, but he was one of these first defenders in quite a long time to be able to contain Bolasie that like he did. And to be honest, the thing to highlight about Joe Ward's performance, yes, he was fantastic defensively, but offensively he was fantastic as well. His assist for Benteke's goal was a perfectly placed and timed cross into the area. Yes, the ball got deflected, by Everton. We got the ball back, got possession. We were ticky-tacking passing between Ledley, I believe it was Townsend on the wing, and obviously Joe Ward passing it around on the right-hand side of the Everton area. Ball came back to Ward. He hit the ball with a lovely cross, lovely curling effort to the head of Christian Benteke, which was perfectly timed so he could get his head on it. And also, it was perfectly placed as well, right onto the head of Benteke, and obviously the header was even better. So once again, Ward showing his defensive qualities in defending against Yannick Bolasie, but also showing his very good offensive ability by having perfectly timed and placed crosses. Now to move on to the centre-back, and I'm going to start with James Tompkins, who I am going to give a 7. Didn't put a foot wrong. You can see why Palace paid the £10 million fee for him. So obviously James Tompkins, there isn't really much to highlight about his game because he had a very professional game. He didn't put a foot wrong, so there's nothing really to highlight about his game. And yes, in the first half we were a bit shaky defensively, but in the second half, once again, James Tompkins, Damien Delaney showed their experience to go forth in the game and improve on the the worst performance I had in the first half, and that resulted in us having quite a good control, quite a big control on the second half. And to be honest, you can see why Palace paid £10 million for him. He's a very classy defender. He's got very good professionalism about him, but also defensively he was absolutely sound, making tackles, making blocks, putting headers away. And on the subject of headers, he could have scored a goal himself. The ball was whipped in once again from Joe Ward, I believe it was. He got his head on it, tried to do the Benteke, but obviously Benteke has a little bit more experience and quality when it comes to headering. But the fact that he was able to find the space to get his head on the ball shows the skill and experience he has. And once again, he didn't put a foot wrong in the game, but had a very good sound defensive performance. Now to move on to the captain, Damien Delaney, who I am going to give a 7. Took responsibility for the defensive failure to jump for Lukaku's free kick, a decision he regrets. However, he made up for it in the second half by defending resolutely and nearly scoring with a winner, but the goal was ruled offside. So obviously Damien Delaney, I was discussing with Steve Mandanda about the free kick decision and whether it was Mandanda's fault for not diving and trying to save it, or whether it was the wall's fault for not jumping. And to be honest, Damien Delaney came out and said that Steve Mandanda said to jump, but he decided not to jump because he thought that Lukaku was going to hit it under the wall. But you know what? He stood up, and that's what you want of a player. Yes, he's you know, a very honest person. He's got good character. The fact that he would come out and instead of just saying, oh, you know, it wasn't me who made that decision, he came out and said after the game, yes, it was me who made the decision. It was my wrongdoing. And it was a decision that he regretted. And that shows how professional he is as a player, because he could come out and say sorry for the mistakes he made. And to be honest, in the first half, yes, we were a bit shaky, and that led to us conceding the goal. And it was his high boot that led to the free kick anyway, which is debatable. But to be honest, looking at the free kick decision, yes, Delaney's gone in there with a high boot. But then the player, I can't remember who it was, but he also went in there and handballed it. So what that should have been is an indirect free kick where Lukaku, maybe Barkley would have whipped the ball in the area and then they would have got their head on it. But instead, the referee said it was only, you know, the high boot from Delaney rather than both the high boot and the handball, and ultimately gave them the direct free kick, which meant they could score straight from it. So on that decision, it probably should have been an indirect free kick because, you know, they were both offences there. But, you know, enough on that. He regretted his decision there. You know, he could have done better with that opportunity, whether it would be, you know, rather than trying to put his foot into it, he could have just bodied the ball away. But enough of that decision. He made up for that in the second half with his absolutely rock solid, resilient defending. It was absolutely fantastic. And to be honest, he almost scored the winner. Yes, we know he did score it and it was ruled offside, which is another debatable decision. Yes, MacArthur was offside, but MacArthur didn't touch the ball, so there you go, the ball went in and he didn't touch it. And people saying that he made a gesture towards the goalkeeper. MacArthur was to the left-hand side of Stecklenburg, I believe it is. So Stecklenburg could have, you know, tried to dive and save the ball, but he saw it was going in the bottom right-hand corner anyway, so he didn't dive for it. And I don't believe that MacArthur standing there would have done anything to him anyway, because it wasn't like he was stood in front of him and all he was doing, MacArthur, was going forward to head the ball in. So I don't see how that was a disallowed goal. But to be honest, it was offside. We move on. But, you know, he did almost score the winner. So that shows the quality, once again, Damien Delaney has. Yes, he's not only just good at defending, but also when it comes to offensively, he's very good at headering as well. And to be honest, it was very unlucky that he was ruled offside because, you know, the player or the referee, the linesman, thought that MacArthur made contact with the ball and made a gesture to the goalkeeper when actually he didn't really, if you look back at it. But enough on that decision. You know, another solid performance from Damien Delaney, who once again took the captain's armband and commanded the side very well as well. Obviously, moving on to the final player of the back four, and that is the left back, Martin Kelly, who I am going to give a 7. As with Tompkins, he did not make any mistakes and showed composure when in possession in the face of a lot of pressure in the first half. So similar to James Tompkins, Martin Kelly didn't really put a foot wrong, and he didn't really make any mistakes throughout the game. And that really isn't really much to highlight about his performance. And I think he fully deserves his 7 because defensively, he was absolutely fantastic. He showed composure and professionalism as well, making tackles, making blocks. But also, he was very composed when he was in possession. And we've seen that in a few players last season, that when we had possession, they would try and offload the ball quickly because they don't want to have possession. But Martin Kelly, in this game, when he had possession, he had a calmness about him, which meant that when he had the ball, he'd either find a cross, find a pass, and that way wouldn't lose possession. And to be honest, he had a lot of pressure in the first half, you know, players bolting down the wing, but he managed to stay composed, and like Ward in that sort of fullback role, he was able to cope with the attacking wingers they have. And to be honest, similar to Damien Delaney as well, you know, he defended like a rock. He was fantastic, you know, tracking back, making blocks. And the only bad thing about his performance was he was going out of position a bit too much. But then when he did go out of position on a few occasions, he did track back and get back into his original position. So you can congratulate him on doing that because he didn't give up on defending. He went back, sprinted down, and went back to do the role in the space that he left. But you know what? Once again, another solid performance from Martin Kelly. And I think he's a very good replacement for Papa Soare, and hopefully when Papa Soare comes back there'll be a bit more competition, and Martin Kelly hopefully will get a bit more looking into the side, because certainly in a few games he's played this season where Papa Soare has been injured, he's played absolutely fantastically. Now to move on to Joe Ledley, who I am going to give a 7. resolute in his pursuit of Guy and Gareth Barry in the midfield, and didn't give his opponents any time on the ball for long spells of the game. So once again, I did sort of touch on this at the beginning of the introduction to the player rankings, but once again, Palace played the sort of 4-3-3 formation, and that's been working for us lately, and it's, you know, it's a very good attacking and defensive formation. And once again, Joe Ledley played an integral part in that formation, obviously playing in the more deeper role, which meant he had to deal with the likes of Gay and Barry, and to be honest, he done that very well. And to be honest, when they had the ball, once again in the defensive role, he put loads of pressure on them and didn't give the opponents any time on the ball. And, you know, for quite a long spells in the game, quite long periods in the game, you know, he was able to put his high press game into use and ultimately not give the opponents much time on the ball. But to be honest, once again, you know, Gay, Barry, they're very good players, but once again, he was able to keep them contained in the game and didn't really give them any opportunities to find their fellow teammates and obviously get an opportunity in the game. But I think, you know, on the few occasions he pushed forward, he had very good link-up play. There was one opportunity where he found space, got into the box, found a low cross into the area. It was deflected, or it was cleared by the Everton defenders, but it shows that, yes, he plays defensive roles in obviously giving the opponents not much time on the ball, but when he goes forward, he's got this quality that he can find the space, use his skill to actually find areas where he can go into, and ultimately that led to him, you know, creating a few opportunities. And that cross within, I think it was the first sort of 15 minutes, found that space in the area, put a lovely cross into the area, quite a low drive, and it did get blocked and cleared away. But that's just showing his quality both attacking offensively and defensively. But once again, he played an integral part in the way the team played, because he was able to be versatile in moving from an attacking role into a defensive role and vice versa. But moving on to his fellow teammate who was in the same position again, and that is James McArthur, who I am going to give a 7. It wasn't the best of first half from the Scotsman, but his second half performance showed more intelligence and goal. So obviously, once again, James McArthur playing in the more attacking role, like we've seen him play in the last few games, he done that very well. And yes, like quite a few of the players, didn't really have the best of first halves, and ultimately led to us conceding the goal. Obviously, our possession wasn't very good in the lead up to that goal. But to be honest, his second half performance was absolutely fantastic. He carried on with what he's done in past games, his high press, you know, giving players not much time on the ball, getting at players, making tackles, making blocks, and also when he has possession, he's very creative with it. You know, one thing that I do credit him for is that when he has possession, rather than just running straight at a player or just passing the ball, offloading the ball and give it out to someone else for their problem, he'd get the ball, he'd try and do a spin and turn, and he'd done that on a few occasions to get past players. And obviously when he was playing that more advanced role, playing sort of the number 10 role, let's say, he was able to do that fantastically, because when he had possession, he was creative in the fact that he could turn past the player and find more space. And similar to Ledley, his creativity, his knowledge as well was fantastic, because when he found the space, he was able to find the area. And obviously, where I said about the 4-3-3 formation, obviously the three midfielders, they did rotate quite a lot, so that meant that when Joe Ledley got forward, McArthur was back defending, and I think that system worked very well, because we know McArthur's a more defensive player, but in the last few games we've seen more of his offensive play, and I think that's working to our strengths. And to be honest, yes, his first half performance wasn't that very good, but his second half performance was it showed much more intent from him. You know, he was much more let's say energetic in this in the second half. He would want to go into tackles, he would want to put high pressure on the game, and ultimately that led to us getting the second or the first goal, the equaliser, because it meant that all of that pressure meant that Everton gave the ball away cheaply, and that meant that we could pass the ball around and get the ball into the area. And I think he was quite crucial in that, because he was passing the ball around on the right hand side in the lead up to Benteke's goal. So once again, James McArthur, a fantastic offensive performance going forward with his high press plan, but also when he changed to the more defensive role, he done that very well in the fact that he was able to make tackles, blocks and track back, and also from a few corners he defended them very well as well. Obviously, moving on to the final player in our three-man midfield, and that is Jason Puncheon, who I am going to give an 8. He's the source of many of the good things that Palace do, and Puncheon's control of the midfield really showed in the second half. So obviously Jason Puncheon was one of the players in the team that had an overall fantastic game. He was very good and effective in the first half, and obviously in the second half he was fantastic as well. He was even better, let's say. And to be honest, he was the source of everything good that Palace done in the game. Because where he was playing a more central role, let's say number 10 next to MacArthur, he was able to use his creativity to create all of our chances. And he'd done that very well. Obviously, where he was playing in the middle, he had to be the source of all of our chances, obviously, whether it be supplying the wingers or the striker, and he'd done that very well. He'd done that with ease, let's say, and to be honest, his control on the midfield was fantastic. You know, he was able to keep a calmness when he had the ball in possession. He was able to look for a pass, control the midfield, making sure we didn't give away possession, and he'd done that very well. And to be honest, it showed very much in the second half. You know, the fact that his control meant that we could get the ball into the area, because in the lead up to that goal we were passing the ball around, lovely quick passing, and I think that control of the midfield was mainly due to Punchin, because he made sure that all of the players, instead of just offloading the ball, were trying to find the space, and I think that rubbed off on the whole team, the fact that he had the control. And to be honest, he was everything good about Palace. You know, he was the man making the chances, he was the man finding the space, he was the man taking the set pieces as well. You know, his corners were absolutely fantastic. Obviously one of them led to the goal. I believe it was Damien Delaney's goal, was disallowed, obviously for the offside. But the fact that is that delivery came in. Yes, it was a bit unlucky. No one else could get their head on it. Deflected away. Punchin came back into play. Bit of passing as well. And then obviously Ward eventually got the crossing. So once again, Jason Punchin, whether it will be attacking, defensively, corners, everything like that about his game was fantastic. And he was the marksman, the talesman, let's say, for the team, because he was the integral part. And if I'm talking about the most integral player for Palace, sort of the last few weeks in our unbeaten run, which I believe is 5 games, I think he's the crucial man, because his control on games is fantastic, and that's what helps us to win games, because he's able to defend well, making tackles, making blocks, but going forward he's absolutely fantastic. His creativity is what makes him the player he is, because if it weren't for his creativity we would have been able to create half the chances we did, and because of that it meant we had a foothold on the game. Now to move on to the winger, Wilfried Zaha obviously came in from the last game instead of Yohan Cabaye, and I am going to give Wilfried Zaha an 8. His opponent, Brian Oviedo, will testify that he had a tough game. Zaha showed maturity by not letting his performance drop despite close attention, but also by tracking back and doing the defensive work expected of him. So obviously Brian Oviedo was the one defending Wilfried Zaha, and similar to the way Ward had to defend against Balassi, it was very hard competition. Obviously Zaha, a very fast winger, Oviedo not the fastest of defenders, and I think that, you know, was quite tough for him, but I still think that Wilfried Zaha had a little bit more professionalism and also maturity in the game. And to be honest, yes, he was injured the last few games. He's come back into the squad and didn't let his performance drop. You know, yes, there was lots of attention on him because, you know, he was up against his old teammate in Balassi, but also, you know, there's high expectations of Zaha. But once again, he showed the quality he's got by, you know, having a fantastically high rated performance, and that's why I've given him the 8, because his maturity was fantastic. When he had the ball, he was able to do lots of stuff with it. He was able to get past Oviedo on a few occasions, get a few decent crosses into the area, get past his men on quite a lot of occasions. And to be honest, there was quite a lot of attention on him, but I think that didn't really get to him like it's done in past weeks, and his maturity shone through, and that actually helped him to have a very good game indeed. And also, similar to Andros Townsend, he's been asked by Alan Pardew to track back and defend, and he's done it very well. Yes, you know, when someone like Kelly may have pushed up and Ward have pushed up to, you know, try and attack, and Everton have regained possession, obviously there's spaces at the back because the defenders have gone up and they're quite high up the field. So Wilfried Zaha, using his pace, will track back and do defensive work, which was wanted of him, whether that would be making blocks. He didn't really make any tackles throughout the game, but he certainly made quite a few blocks and gaining back possession, which is what you want of a player of his ability. You know, yes, he didn't score or get an assist in this game, but certainly we did see glimpses of that, whether it be his crossing ability, his ability to get past the man, and also just his overall creativity and attacking sense about his game. And that's why I've given him the 8, because it was a fantastic performance from him, the best attacking performance we've seen in a long time from him, but also his defensive work was fantastic as well when he had to track back. Now to move on to the centre forward, and that is Christian Benteke, who I am going to give a 9. Palace play it in a way that suits Benteke perfectly, and this showed more than once as the Belgian put in a man of the match performance that was topped off with a stunning headed goal. So obviously Christian Benteke, he's got the goal, and for that reason alone I am going to give him the 9, because it was an absolutely fantastic header there.
I'm not going to say that no Premier League players would have been able to do that, but certainly very few Premier League players will be able to head the ball into the goal like he did. That fantastic cross from Ward was fantastic, in credit to Ward, but the header was even better. You know, Benteke ran up to the ball, made himself really big by jumping in the air, got exactly the perfect height on it, and then got the perfect hit from his head onto it, and he put a lovely curling effort into the bottom corner. So it was an absolutely stunning performance from him. And obviously we all knew that when Benteke came to the club, we would have to supply him with crosses, whether it be from wingers, fullbacks, or maybe long balls from defenders. And, you know, that was how we were going to make Benteke... Yeah, that was how Benteke plays perfectly. If you can supply him with balls that he can header in, then he's going to, you know, fit your system. And that showed more than once. And to be honest, he is, and I will say now, one of the hot contenders for the Man of the Match award, because it was an absolutely stunning performance from him. And the only way to describe it is a Man of the Match performance, because he'd done everything right. Yes, he scored the goal, which was a fantastic header, like I've already said, but everything else about his game was fantastic. You know, when, say, there wasn't many men forward, he would try and run down the flank and sort of go in a wing position so that he could wait for more support. And obviously his hold-up play, like always, was fantastic. You know, we're going forward in numbers. There isn't any players there yet, so he would hold up the ball, wait for the numbers to come forward, whether it be Zaha, Punchin, whoever was on the wing at the time, or even Townsend. He'd wait for them, pass the ball to them, and then make a run into the box and try and get in the end of it. So once again, his spatial awareness was fantastic. His just presence was fantastic as well, because yes, he's a very good attacker, you know, headering the ball, but also if it weren't for him, we probably would have lost possession on quite a few occasions, because when he held up the ball, it meant that we contained and had the possession, which meant that ultimately we could create more chances throughout the game. But certainly it was an absolutely stunning performance from Christian, and once again, I must highlight this, he scored 3 goals in 4 appearances here, so you know, he's already paying back some of the £30 million we paid for him. But hopefully, I've got high hopes from Benteke this season. I think he can probably be one of the first players in quite a long time, in recent history, let's say, in our 4 years in the Premier League, in this sort of stint, let's say. Certainly, I believe he can get into 10 goals, you know, in the Premier League this season. Hopefully get a few in the FA Cup. But certainly, there are high expectations and hopes for Christian Benteke. And hopefully he can carry on this stunning performance in the future. Obviously, Andros Townsend, I am going to give a 7. Obviously, playing on the wing in the 4-3-3 formation. Obviously, with Townsend on one wing, Zaha on the other, and Christian Benteke in the middle. And once again, like the midfield, that worked fantastically well, because it had the right mix between, you know, players who can get past players and get crosses in, as well as players who can get on the end of the crosses, obviously, i.e. Benteke, and score for them. So this formation worked really well, because it had a balance between the attacking players, obviously the front three, but also the defensive players. And once again, I must go back to the formation, because I think the formation was integral to the way we played, because it meant we had the right balance between attacking and defensive. But obviously, Andros Townsend, I am going to give a 7. Failed to make a telling contribution in the first half, especially with some softly taken free kicks, but his second half performance made up for it, with him tirelessly running in offensive and defensive areas. So obviously Andros Townsend, like quite a few of the players, didn't really have the best of first half, and didn't really have much of a contribution in the first half. And yes, he had a few free kicks, and we know, similar to Lukaku, he has a very good left and right foot, and he could normally whip them ones free kicks into the air and maybe score from them. But obviously in the first half, they were quite poorly taken, soft free kicks, and ultimately didn't really come to anything. And maybe if he had put a bit more height and a bit more whip onto the ball, maybe it would have been a better cross. But like all the players, he came out rejuvenated in the second half, and his second half performance made up for all of the bad free kicks and tackles he made in the first half. And to be honest, like most of the players in this formation, you have the versatility for players to move back and forth, and he done that very well. You know, yes, he was one of the best attacking threats going forward. Yes, he would run down the wing, try and get past the player, cut inside, have a shot, get crosses in the area. He done all of that in his game. But Pardew's asked both the wingers to do defensive work, and once again he done that fantastically. He would track back when there was space in the defensive areas. He would track back anyway when Everton were on the counter-attack, and obviously that meant we could have a control on the game, because we had men behind the ball making sure that we could get rid of these chances that Everton had. But once again, Townsend, absolutely fantastic contribution to the team. He was possibly one of the best attacking threats, getting crosses in, getting passes into the area, and also just his overall attacking threat. And yes, his free kicks weren't that very good, and like I said, if he had a bit more whip on them, they probably would have gone in and he would have scored them. But certainly, everything else about his game, other than free kicks, running, tackling, everything like that, was fantastic. And obviously, that concludes all of them players. Obviously, the formation, once again, I'll just go through it. Obviously, Steve Mandanda playing in the goal. The four defenders, obviously, Joe Ward, James Tompkins, Martin Kelly and Damien Delaney. Obviously, Joe Ward and Martin Kelly playing the fullback roles, with James Tompkins and Damien Delaney being the centre-backs. Obviously, the three-men formation was Joe Ledley, James McArthur and Jason Puncheon. Obviously, primarily Puncheon and Ledley playing in the more defensive roles, with McArthur playing more offensively. But throughout the game, they switched the formation to whatever suited that situation in the game. Obviously, Joe Ledley, fantastic tackling. McArthur, fantastic at tackling, keeping the ball, hold up play and spinning with the ball. And obviously, Jason Puncheon was integral to that three because he commanded them very well, but also his creativity added to the game. Obviously, the front three, Wilfried Zaha on one wing, Andrews Townsend on the other, Benteke in the middle. We all know why that worked, because you've got a man in Benteke who can head balls into the goal. He done that fantastically well, and that was due to the fact the ammunition we had on the two wings. Townsend whipping crosses in, getting passes in, getting past defenders. Same with Zaha, getting past defenders, whipping the ball in. All of that worked really well, and I think this formation worked really well to the way we were set up, because it meant, like I've said already, it meant that the attackers had a lot of support, the midfielders had a little bit more support as well, and it meant that the defence had more cover, because obviously the three men in the midfield were covering up for them. Obviously, the substitutions, I'm not really going to give them ratings because they didn't really have the biggest impacts on the game. Obviously, one being Yohan Cabaye, one being Lee Chun-yong, didn't really have much impact on the game. And to be honest, the time they came on the field, they didn't really have much to do, because when both substitutions came on, they were sort of fitness substitutions. They didn't really have that much impact on the game. And obviously, they didn't have much to do because it was sort of, we were already drawing the game. Both teams, yes, they were still going at it, but not as much as the high intensity as you saw in the first half. Obviously, Yohan Cabaye, tasked with replacing McArthur in the defensive midfield role, and made a few important tackles to keep Palace in the game. Lee Chun-yong came on for Townsend with a few minutes left and didn't really have much to do. Obviously, both of these players came on for fitness reasons. Obviously, we want to keep Townsend nice and fit. Same with McArthur. And to be honest, they came on the field, and for a little contribution they didn't really have that much. But they did make both Lee Chun-yong and Cabaye, playing in defensive roles, were very good at making tackles. We were drawing at the game. We didn't want to concede a last-minute goal, which meant we lost the game. So these guys came on, kept composed, stayed composed, and ultimately won these tackles to ultimately keep Palace in the game and get us an all-important draw against a very good in-form Everton side. But obviously, that concludes all of the player rankings. And like I said, if you do disagree with what I say, do drop a comment below the video so myself and other fans can hear what you think about the player rankings. And like I said at the beginning, if you do want to challenge me, do in the comments below. Write down all of the 13 players who played in the game and give them ratings from 1 to 10. But obviously, the first half performance wasn't very good from Palace, but in the second half, there was a resurgence. Palace were much better, much more energetic, put a lot more pressure on Everton, and ultimately that led to us getting a goal, which once again was a fantastic, astonishing Christian Benteke goal. And to be honest, against a very good Everton side, I think a draw was a fantastic result.
Now to move on to my Man of Match award. But before we start with that, I'm now going to give you the 4 nominations for my Man of Match award, and also the results from my Twitter poll. So the 4 nominations for the Man of Match award for the game against Everton are Damien Delaney, Joe Ward, Wilfried Zaha and Christian Benteke. So obviously, after I've given you the results on my Twitter poll, I'll go through the 4 nominations and why I nominated them and put them on the shortlist, and then I'll go on to explain in a little bit more detail on who I thought the Man of the Match was and why I gave it to them over the other players. But obviously, if you do want to vote in the Twitter poll, do follow me or at the CPC podcast. Obviously, the poll is not run by Crystal Palace, but if you do want to vote on it, do go on my Twitch account, like I said, at the Crystal Palace podcast. Because on there, I post lots of news as well, retweet quite a lot of this club stuff, so you can keep up to date with that as well. But ultimately, if you do want to get involved and have your voice heard in the poll, do obviously follow me on there. But obviously, like I said, the 4 nominations, Damien Delaney, Joe Ward, Wilfried Zaha and Christian Benteke. Starting in last place with Wilfried Zaha with 8% of the votes, obviously finished 4th.
In third place with 18% of the votes was Damien Delaney. In second place with 19% of the votes, so only a 1% difference, was Joe Ward, which means the winner with a fantastic 55% overall percentage was Christian Benteke. So congratulations, Christian. You don't get a trophy or certificate, but you do get my sincere congratulations on what was a very solid attacking performance from you. And like I said, that goal, I've already said it in the player rankings, but that goal was absolutely phenomenal. World class, if you want to say with that, because the spin you put on that ball and the height you got to get above the defender was absolutely phenomenal. But once again, I'll just go through the results. Obviously, in fourth place, Wilfried Zaha. Third place, Damien Delaney. Second place and runner-up, Joe Ward. And Christian Benteke, with 55% of the votes, was obviously Christian Benteke in first place. But obviously, I'm just going to go through now in a little, just brief detail, because obviously you probably heard it in the player rankings on who I thought was the best player, and obviously why I nominated them. But obviously, once again, Damien Delaney was the captain for the side, commanded his side very well, made sure everyone knew what they were doing, and his defensive work was fantastic. And the thing I liked about him, he was a proper man. You know, after game, he came out and said that it was his decision not to jump for the free kick, which ultimately led to Everton's goal. So instead of just blaming it on someone else, he came up, he stood up and said, it was me who made that decision. Yes, Steve in the goal didn't really want me to do that, but I was stood firm, made that decision, and yes, it resulted in us conceding the goal, but at least he came out and actually said, and he said he regrets it, but at least he came out, and that shows a real man, a good personality, the fact that he was able to come out and say and apologise for the wrong decision he made. But once again, other than that decision and that leadership he showed, he was fantastic defensively, making tackles, making blocks. And his headering was fantastic as well. Yes, headed away a few corners from Everton, but also had a header of his own, which he did score. But like I said, it was a debatable one because he headed it in. It went in, but apparently James McArthur made a gesture to in front of the goalkeeper, even though he was to the left-hand side of him. And apparently he touched the ball anyway. But enough of that. Damien Delaney, fantastic, solid performance and a good leadership performance as well. Obviously, Joe Ward, like Damien Delaney, was fantastic defensively, making tackles, making blocks. But the thing about Ward's performance was the cross he made for Benteke's goal. Lovely weighted cross, exactly placed on Benteke's head so he could score. And also the lovely pace on the ball as well to give it enough momentum to go into the bottom corner of the goal. And, you know, that was fantastic for Ward to get that cross. But also just his offensive work overall in the game was fantastic. He got forward as much as he could, as well as tracking back and defending. And ultimately that led to us creating a lot of chances because, you know, the high press we had, Everton couldn't cope with the amount of players we had forward. And ultimately that led to us creating a few opportunities. Obviously, Wilfried Zaha, he's also on the list because he was our best attacking threat. And I've said Townsend was because he was getting crosses in and getting past players. But Wilfried Zaha practically done exactly the same thing. You know, Wilfried Zaha's energy was fantastic. He used his pace to get past the defenders, to get crosses in the area. And he done it very well. On a few occasions, he crossed, you know, he cut inside into the area trying to find a pass. Found a few decent passes throughout the game. And that's why I put him on the list. It's a shame he only got 8% of the votes because overall he was one of the best attacking players and I would have liked to see him higher up on that shortlist. But certainly the reason I put him on there because he was the best attacking threat throughout the game, but also just his sheer pace, his skill, everything about his game made it very difficult for Everton. And obviously finishing off Christian Benteke, there's not much to go into detail here because he scored a fantastic header. His control with the ball was fantastic. His ability, his awareness to actually move into the space to head the ball was fantastic. The height he got to score the goal was fantastic. So that's why I put him on there because he scored an absolutely, I'm going to say world-class goal because it was a fantastic goal. You don't see many players scoring headers like that. So obviously apart from that, his hold-up play in the game was fantastic. His ability to run into the wing to find space if there's no one supporting him. Everything like that, his awareness, let's class it under, was fantastic in the game. And ultimately, that led to us having a very good attacking game. But, you know, all of these players do deserve, and most of the team, to be honest, but all, these four players in particular do deserve credit because they were both very good defensively and offensively, getting forward, getting crosses in. All of these players done everything in the game and they were integral parts of the way Palace formed and set up, because if it weren't for these players doing the crucial roles in the team, whether it be Damien Delaney making tackles, Joe Ward providing crosses, Zaha getting past players, or Benteke getting on the end of crosses, if it weren't for these players doing their key roles in the side, we probably wouldn't have had a good game. And that's why I've put them all in the side, or all in the nominations because they all had fantastic games and they were integral parts to the way the team set up. But obviously, I am going to go with the Twitter poll. I am going to give the award to Christian Benteke. So congratulations, you're the double winner of the Crystal Palace podcast. Sorry, the CPFC podcast Man of the Match award for the game against Everton. So congratulations, Christian. You had a very solid performance. To be honest, I'm not going to argue with what I've said already. Christian Benteke, the way that Palace play suits him perfectly well, and that's why he's going to score goals, because we all knew that we had to provide him with crosses. We're doing that now, and now we're seeing the quality that he has, and that's why he's on this list, because his quality was fantastic. He put in a man of the match performance. He showed off his skill that he's got with the stunning headed goal, and for the goal alone, other than his hold up play, put that aside, but for the goal alone, which was a fantastic curling headed effort into the bottom corner, for that alone, I am going to nominate him, and he's going to get my personal man of the match. But obviously, now you've heard my match report, player rankings, and my man of the match. That concludes this week's podcast. Now I've got an exclusive interview with Alan Pardew, Joe Ward, and James Tompkins following the game.
Alan, 5 games unbeaten now in the league. How pleased are you with that point tonight?
No, it was a great point for us because we conceded the first goal again, and Everton are a good side. They put us under a couple of spells that it was difficult for us, but we conceded the goal, weathered that little period, and then the second half, a couple of little changes tactically and in our kind of mentality. And brilliant second half. I mean, that's as good as we're going to play away from home against the top team. Totally bossed it and got the equaliser and perhaps should have had the winner.
Yeah, Christian Benteke with that equaliser, would you say he's one of the best headers of the ball you've worked with?
Yeah, I think so. In terms of the technique of his heading and the height that he gets, I mean, Andy Carroll takes some beating, but they're on a par with that. But his all-round game today was terrific, and his energy and everything, he's really give us a lift. And I'm really pleased with the work we've done in the summer because you can see that this is a good team.
Did you get any clarification on the goal that was ruled out at all?
Well, only that the linesman thought Damo was offside, and it obviously wasn't Damo. But Maka goes across the line of the ball. That's one of those, I suppose we could have got it, but we didn't. I actually thought we should have won it with another chance that earlier with cross from Townsend, and Christian just got under it. That would have been a nice moment if he'd have got a second goal.
Look at the points tally going into the international break. Did it exceed your expectations?
Well, of course, after the back end of last year and the fact that we didn't get Christian 2 games in, and was trying to get our main striker in and players coming back from Euros, outstanding. Really, the group have been brilliant. I really must pat them on the back, and our fans must be happy too.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Joel, 5 games unbeaten now and a great point this evening. Are you pleased with the performance?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was. I think Everton have been on a great run. They've shown that they're a top side, and I think we matched them tonight. And I think second half, our performance levels, we upped them a couple of percent, and we put them under pressure. And it was unfortunate that the second goal was deemed offside, or however it was.
Yeah, what was the opinion on that in the team?
I haven't really seen it, but I think there was a motion towards the ball or something like that, and even though I don't think the keeper was going to get anywhere near it was a great header from Damo. But that's the way it happens sometimes, and we just pick ourselves up and go again, and we take the point, which was well fought and deserved the point.
And for you personally, an assist this evening, you must be delighted with that.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've been working a lot on exploiting and kind of putting the balls into the box, and I think in the last few games we've really kind of taken advantage of having Christian in there and the presence that he brings in the box. So it's fantastic to for him to get on the end of the ball, and obviously it's great to be a part of the goal.
Just looking at their goal, there's a lot of question about whether the wall should have jumped or not. What was the feeling on the pitch?
It's one of them things. What was said at half time, what's said between the players stays between the players, and what's said in the dressing room stays with us. So, something that we'll go away, talk about, and decide what we do next time.
What was it like facing up against Yannick Bolasie today, a player you've had a lot of great times with?
Yeah, no, I mean obviously it's, you wish Jan all the best, and he's kicked on, and he's doing well for himself. But, you know, it's obviously great to put yourself up against him. You know, playing with him for a few years, you saw some of the times he's destroyed teams and taken teams on, taken them apart individually. And it was obviously nice to match yourself up against someone of that quality.
The team playing expansive football at the moment and really confident. How much fun is it playing for the club at the moment?
It's brilliant. I think you know, we're starting to really kick on and maybe turn some heads and you know, forge, you know, an identity within and throughout the club. I think there's been a lot of changes and we're mixing up, but we're not coming away from what we know we're good at. And I think we're starting to be able to dictate play for periods of the game and large periods of the game and mix it with some of the top teams.
Thanks a lot, Joel. James, great away point today. How pleased are you with the performance?
Yeah, I think the performance spoke for itself really today. I think, you know, we started pretty brightly. That was the main thing, you know, coming here at Goodison Park, and you know, starting well is key really, and we did that. You know, unfortunately we went a goal down sort of midway through, I think, the first half, and yeah, kind of killed our momentum a little bit. And then it was with them really for a little bit, and then the second half I thought we dominated really, and it just shows, you know, our character at the minute. You know, going a goal down or 2 goals down last week, and you know, coming back from that, and you know, the lads have put a great shift in today.
A great striker at each end of the pitch today, Benteke and Lukaku. First of all, Lukaku, what was he like to play against?
Yeah, no, he's obviously on his days a handful, you know, physical lad, and obviously Yannick was playing against us today up there as well, so you know, plenty of pace and power up there, and you know, could be a right handful, but you know, I thought we dealt with him well today.
And Christian at the other end was a great header, wasn't it?
Yeah, fabulous header. There weren't much, you know, pace on the ball, and you know, that leap that he's got, and you know, he's rose highest, and you know, put it in the corner, which was hard to do, and you know, he's proving what a good striker he is.
You had a nice run of games now during this great winning period, unbeaten period. How have you settled in?
Yeah, nice. You know, I've obviously played with 2 different centre halves, and you know, I like playing with both, and you know, everyone's welcomed me into the team, and you know, hopefully I'm showing what I can do, and you know, hopefully I can go from strength to strength. You know, obviously I'm really enjoying it. Like you said, unbeaten run, and you know, hopefully it continues.
And do you have to change your game at all? You've played with Scott Dann and Damien Delaney. Does your role change at all, depending on who you're with?
It didn't. So I think when I was, you know, stoked with Scotty, I was playing on the left-hand side, and you know, with Damo, with him being left-footed, I play on the right-hand side. So, you know, I like to think I can play both, and quite versatile like that. And you know, I can play like most positions along the back line. So, you know, it doesn't really matter with me. And you know, I played a lot of centre halves in my time. So, you know, no different there. And you know, the other lads are good to players. So.
And a bit of a break now before the next game, 2 weeks now, but big game for you, I suppose, West Ham United, but you kind of wish it was coming sooner with the good run that we've been on.
Yeah, for sure. I think with the momentum we got in a minute, and you know, the spirit we've got, we'd like to obviously play it sooner, but international comes, and hopefully we can get a few other injuries back, and you know, that's the main thing, and obviously rest up well, but obviously put in a good shift in training. Obviously, like I said, when we come back, we've got West Ham, which is my old team, which is obviously a massive one for myself.
Well, I'm sure you'll be doing loads of media in the lead up to that one, so I'll leave you now. Safe journey home.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheers.
So there you have it. Now you've heard what Alan Pardew, Joe Ward and James Tompkins had to say after the game. That concludes this week's podcast for the game against Everton. But make sure to come back next week for my post-match review for the game against West Ham. So thanks for listening, and remember to up the Palace.